Good afternoon, everyone. I will not bore you with any stories about my athletic prowess in this gym when I went here in junior high. I know you didn't come here for that, so you always bring a ringer with you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just would like to thank you for being here today. Before we start, I would just like to acknowledge, and I really want to thank the Pennsylvania Voter ID Coalition. You guys have done an awesome job, I tell you. Awesome job. It is clear that when this ill-conceived proposal to basically suppress individuals' rights as it relates to their opportunity to vote was not going to be met with such pushback. And if they had any idea of what this group was about, they would not have even tried this. So I just really want to congratulate you, and we in City Council are prepared to be extremely supportive in whatever way possible. We chose this particular backdrop for a reason, because this represents a polling place in the city of Philadelphia, a traditional neighborhood, a particular ward and division that happens to be in the top 10 of the locations that are most likely to have the people that will not have an opportunity to vote. Can't give you the percentage because it changes every day based on the inaccuracies associated with the information that's coming out of the state. But at the end of the day, if only 10 people walked into this polling place and were not able to vote on election day, that's 10 too many, all right? So I just want to say that City Council, and I'd like to acknowledge the representatives here today on behalf of Council, Councilwoman Cindy Bass, Councilwoman Maria Quinones-Sanchez, Councilman Bobby Henon, and we have City Commissioner Anthony Clarke, who happens to also be the ward leader for this particular neighborhood. I want to acknowledge and thank them for being a part of this. We all have been working very hard on this very important measure. I want to talk real briefly, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues about the importance of getting this message out. And I know that there's some uncertainty in terms of how the ultimate outcome will affect what we need to do on November the 6th. But at the end of the day, I think it has gotten people engaged. It has energized people, not only the wonderful coalition that's been put together to fight this, but the average citizen. When you talk to average citizens, they say that they want to vote simply because somebody told them that they couldn't vote. And I think that this thing is going to backfire in monumental proportions against those people who came up with this ill-conceived proposal. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the coalition for your participation. On behalf of Council, City Council is going to be here to participate and to assist the organizations, whatever measure is necessary. Individual offices are going to be in a position to help people on an individual basis. Council will put on its website specific numbers that people can contact for specific issues. So I just want to thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to continue to participate in this struggle as we move forward. What I'd like to do at this point, I'd like to recognize one of the members of the Series 6, Councilwoman Cindy Bass. Councilwoman, can you please come forward? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cindy Bass, and I represent the 8th District, which covers Mount Airy, Germantown, Chestnut Hill, Nicetown, Tioga, part of Logan, part of Alany, and part of North Philadelphia. And I start out saying that because it's important to recognize the numbers and what they represent. And if we look at what the Department of State originally told us, that there would be over 180,000 Philadelphians who would not be eligible if today was voting day. If we look at that data, that says that basically you could look at my district, the entirety of my district, and then some would be unable to vote. That's how large the population is that we're talking about in the city of Philadelphia. And so if you want to take that away and you want to look at another district, you know, whose district would we exclude from voting completely? Would it be Councilwoman Maria Quinones-Sanchez in the 7th? Would that be acceptable to anyone? No. What about Council President Clarke in the 5th? Would that be acceptable? Or Councilman Henon? Would it make a difference if it was any one of our districts? Would we say, oh, well, that's okay. We can write off all of those people over there. We can not have this person's district participate in what we always encourage people to do, exercise their civic engagement by voting and participating and being a part of the process. Would it be okay if we said that about half of the city of Philadelphia wasn't able to vote because, you know, the next number they came out was something like 750,000 people plus wouldn't be able to vote today throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So if we look at the entire state and boil that down to the city of Philadelphia, if we said, okay, we're going to take out half of the entire city, they're not going to be able to vote. They're not going to be able to participate. Would that be okay? And I think that we can all agree that that would be problematic, that would not be acceptable. And, you know, it boggles the mind as to what the Commonwealth and the Department of State, what is it that they are trying to accomplish? When you look at this so-called fraud that they are trying to prevent, what they've done here does nothing of the sort. What they've done here does nothing of the sort. What they have actually done, as one of the Republican leaders actually said, is try to hold down the vote to affect a presidential election, to affect the outcome of a presidential election. And we all know this. This is not a secret, and it's no longer just speculation. This is something that he actually said. And so we need to do what we have to do, whether it's through legislative matters, whether it's through knocking on doors and pulling people out and making sure that they have the identification that they need to be able to go out and vote, because Election Day is less than 100 days away. We have no time to waste. We're not going to play any games, and we're going to take this matter very, very seriously. And so with that, I just want to thank you all for being here today and for everyone for the work that you're going to do to make sure that we get the turnout that we need. And I'd like to now turn it over to my colleague, Councilwoman Maria Quinones-Sanchez. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I also want to thank the coalition, the Voter ID Coalition. It is definitely an example of what we are capable of doing and pulling together in times of crisis, because this is a crisis. This is about denying people the most basic fundamental rights. And so I want to thank President Clarke, who has supported us in council when we have passed several resolutions against this legislation before it was passed, and now thereafter, in saying we're going to use our council resources, our access, our offices, our public forums to support the organizations on the ground that are doing this work. For language minority communities in particular, this is particularly devastating. Many of you don't know, 2 years ago, the governor of Puerto Rico disqualified the 7 million plus Puerto Rican birth certificates, and in the last 2 years, many of us have been working to help Puerto Ricans obtain a birth certificate. We learned during that process, when the government of Puerto Rico tried to insist on these new birth certificates, that they did not have the capacity to process the request. And that's what we're seeing here in Pennsylvania. As someone who ended up in that PennDOT list, as someone without a license, it speaks to the fact that we don't have the accurate data and that the Department of Transportation is not prepared to do that. And we hope that we win in litigation, and I know our partners are willing to go up to the Supreme Court. But in the interim, we have a responsibility and an obligation to do our civic duty and ensure that everybody has, regardless of what language, access to the information, access to the documents that they need, and we're all pledging our continued support to do that. I know the Hispanic Bar Association and others are getting together in the Latino community, particularly concerned about our seniors, many who, for obvious reasons, have lived their lives, have voted all their lives, and just an ID, no one, you know, they don't need to know who they are. They know who they are. Everybody knows who they are. And now are faced with this challenge about getting the documents necessary to get this ID. We know the Department of State is not prepared for this. We know that they are working against the will of the community. People have all over the country have said this is unnecessary, and we're going to do our part, both on the legal side, but more importantly on the public service side, to make sure that the information is accessible and available. So I want to thank the coalition and look forward to these next 100 days as Council President said, we're going to turn the tide. They're going to regret the day that they challenged us in our ability to vote. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to my council colleague, Councilman Bobby Henon.